Om Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Bandhuscha Saka Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Shri Dakshinamurti Sudeshi Kendram Dvaipayanam Sutrakritam Munindram Sri Shankaram Bhashyakritam Yatindram Maddeshi Kanchapi Namami Vityai Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vamsarishibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyah Sarvopa Plavarhita Prajnana Ganaha Pratyakarto Brahmaivaham Asmi Om Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikapanaye Jnana Mudraya Krishnaya Gita Mritaduhe Namaha. Pranams everyone. We are doing the first chapter, Sloka number 21. Second line. Arjuna uvacha senayor ubayor madhye ratam stapaya mechuta yavad deta niriksheham yotukaman avastitan kairmaya sahayodavyam अस्मिन् रणसमुद्यमे योत्स्यमानानवेक्षेऽहं यये तत्र समागताः धार्तराष्ट्रस्य दुर्बुद्धेः युद्धे प्रियचिकीर्षवः. So after both parties, both the Kauravas and Pandavas had actually indicated that they are ready for the war. Just before the war was to commence, Arjuna said the following things to Bhagavan. So Arjuna uvacha, and he said, Senayor ubhayor madhye ratam stapaya mechuta. O Achyuta, place my chariot between the two armies. And why did he want to do that? He wanted to see who were there assembled to fight. Aham nirikshe, I see, till I see, yavat aham nirikshe, till I see, till he sees what? Etan avastitan, those who are assembled. For what? Yodhukaman, with a desire to fight. So he wants to see who he is going to fight against. And then he further says, let me see those with whom saha kaihi maya yodavyam, whom I should fight. Where he should fight? In this event of war, asmin rana samudyame. So he basically, Arjuna is now eager to fight, and his eagerness, he wants to see whom he will be fighting against. And then he further says, I wish to see not only whom I'm going to fight against, I want to see, or I wish to see those who are assembled here for fulfilling the desire of evil-minded Duryodhana. He says, Dhardarashtran durbuddhehe yuddhe priyachikirshavaha. He wants to see who are there to fulfill the desire of the evil-minded Duryodhana. So Arjuna really knows that this fight is for Dharma, and people who are on the other side are fighting for adharma. So he is very clear on that. As of now. As I said, no doubt Bhishma is a great person, Drona is a great person. Arjuna does not have any sentimental problems right now. His intellect was ruling the decision. He does not have any emotional problems. And he is very clear that he is on the side of Dharma, and this fight is between Dharma and Adharma. As I said, Dharma is the only thing that is permanent. All relations are all temporary. So if we have to choose between relations and Dharma, we should choose Dharma. At the same time, Vedanta is not against emotions. Vedanta gives preference to intellect, but it is not against emotions also. It is all about having the right emotions. Some people have this wrong opinion that once you come to Vedanta, you become emotionless, you become like a stone, you don't have any feeling for others. That is not true. Even as a jnani, one of the defining traits of a jnani is ahimsa, maitraha, karunaha. All these traits, all these are traits of a jnani. So these are all friendliness, compassion, ahimsa, which is not hurting others. These are all traits of a jnani. Again, ahimsa, himsa or doing himsa is actually bad, but himsa is also it's not a samanya dharma, it is a vishesha dharma. When we had discussed on the values in chapter 13, we would have discussed about this also, that himsa is ahimsa is a samanya dharma, but ahimsa has to be overruled once the vishesha dharma of a kshatriya comes into force. As a kshatriya, one is supposed to uphold dharma, and for upholding dharma, there is a need to bring order in the form of violence, and at that point of time, himsa is accepted. That is called as Apavaadha rule. According to Dharma Shastras, there is a rule. Utsargah means the general rule, universal rule. Then there is Apavaadha, basically the exceptions. So exceptions are allowed. And that's why even in chapter 4 in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan will say, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So he will say that to establish dharma and to vinashaya dushkritam, people who do wrongs, to destroy them, he will take avatars. So himsa is allowed as an exception, and himsa is allowed to establish dharma. And now here, this is important to understand Arjuna's mindset now. Arjuna is right now, he is very clear that Duryodhana is durbuddhaha. People on the other side are actually there only to please Duryodhana and only to fulfill his desire, and therefore they are fighting on the side of adharma. So here, after this, what has happened, Sanjaya describes. So we'll go to Sloka number 24. Sanjayo vacha eva mukto rishikeshah Gūḍākeśena bharata senayor ubayor madhye stapayitva ratottamam. We'll do 25 also. Bhishma drona pramutkatah sarvesham cha mahikshitam uvacha partha pashyaitan samavetan kuru niti. Sanjaya uvacha eva mukto rishikeshah Gūḍākeśena bharata senayor ubayor madhye stapayitva ratottamam. Bhishma drona pramukatah sarvesham cha mahikshitam uvacha partha pashyaitan samavetan kuru niti. So Sanjaya now says, so Arjuna had given the command or basically requested, and Bhagavan, without speaking any single word, has to do certain actions. But before that, what action does he do? Sanjaya says that. So Sanjaya basically describes what happened in the battlefield. So he says, Uktam evam rishikesha. Eva mukta rishikesha. Uktam evam rishikesha. Bhagavan Krishna is called also Rishikesha. Uktaha means commanded. Uktaha evam means commanded thus. Commanded thus. By who? Gūḍākeśah. So Arjuna is given a title here, Gūḍākeśah. Gūḍāka means sleep, or in other words, tamoguna. We can say tamoguna, laziness, dullness. So Gūḍāka. Gūḍāka means laziness, tamoguna. Ishaha means master of that. So the one who has mastered over sleep or laziness. Therefore, Gūḍākeśah means one who is not tamasic in nature, one who has conquered tamoguna. And this is important because the Gita Shastra is about to begin, and for any person to be able to accept or assimilate this knowledge, this person shouldn't be under the grip of tamoguna. If he is in the grip of tamoguna, then he is not fit for learning Gita. So Vyasacharya is indirectly indicating that Arjuna is not a tamasic person. He is not a dull-witted person. He is a competent person to understand what Bhagavan is going to say. So Gūḍākeśena Bharata. Bharata. Here Bharata means Sanjaya is addressing Dhritarashtra. So he says, hey Dhritarashtra, this is what happened. Eva mukta Rishikesha Gūḍākeśena Bharata. So having commanded thus by Arjuna, Bhagavan, Rishikesha is Bhagavan. What did Krishna do? Senayor ubhayor madhye stapayitva ratotamam. He positioned or he stationed the chariot. Ratotamam. Ratham means chariot. Ratha uttamam. Uttama ratham. Because it is a great chariot. As you know, this is a celestial chariot. And this chariot was actually gifted by the Devas to Arjuna. Agni Bhagavan had given this chariot to Arjuna. So, and it can also be said as a great chariot because this is the chariot in which Gita Upadesha is about to happen. So therefore it is also Uttama, Ratottamam. So and that chariot he placed between the two armies. Madhye, in between Upayoho Senayo, between the two armies. Senayor Ubayor Madhye Stapayitva Ratottamam. What happened then? Bhishma Drona Pramukataha Sarvesham cha Mahikshitam. Sarvesham Mahikshitam. He placed the chariot in front of the row of kings. Mahikshitam means kings. Sarvesham Mahikshitam. All kings. He placed the chariot in the front row. The front row were all kings. And many of the kings were supporting Duryodhana. And even though there were many kings, the line was full of kings, and Krishna could have placed the chariot anywhere in that line or in front of any of the kings. But what did he do? He did not place it anywhere else, but he placed it in a particular spot. And that particular spot was Bhishma Drona Pramukataha, right in front of Bhishma and Drona. So basically it could be that Bhagavan already knows that Arjuna is weak emotionally, and he wanted to get it out of Arjuna, and therefore to actually to make Arjuna speak up, to make Arjuna come out of it, he could have placed the chariot in front of Bhishma and Drona. Pramukataha. Pramukataha means great warriors. In front of great warriors or like Bhishma Drona. after positioning there, Bhagavan doesn't stop there. He basically induces or tells Arjuna, see the Kauravas assembled. He says, Samavetan kurun iti. Pashyaitan. Uvacha partha pashyaitan. Uvacha partha pashyaitan means Uvacha iti, said thus. Partha. Partha means Arjuna. O Arjuna. Pashya. Pashya means see. Samavetan kuruniti. Samavetan means assembled. Who are the people who are assembled? Etan kurun. These Kauravas. O Arjuna, see these Kauravas assembled here. That is what Bhagavan says. And so basically Krishna not just places the chariot in front of Bhishma and Drona, he also makes sure that Arjuna sees them. And so therefore he says, see the Kauravas assembled here. So what happens next? Sloka 26, 27 and the first line of 28 we will do together. 26, Sloka 26. Tatra pashyastitan partah pitrunata pitamahan acharyan matulan bhratrun putran pautran sakimstata swashuran suhrudaschaiva senayorubayorapi tan samikshya sa kaunteyah sarvan bandhun avastitan kripaya paraya vishtah vishidan abravit tatra pashyastitan partah pitrunata pitamahan acharyan matulan bhratrun putran pautran sakimstata swashuran suhrudaschaiva senayorubayorapi tan samikshya sa kaunteyah sarvan bandhun avastitan kripaya paraya vishtah vishidan abravit. So what happens? Basically Bhagavan obeyed Arjuna's orders. He placed the chariot in front of Bhishma and Drona and he said, take a look. Now the moment Arjuna sees them, the Kauravas, and especially after seeing Bhishma and Drona, his mind is changing. So remember, and the change of the mind happens because it is happening because the chariot was placed in front of Bhishma and Drona. If Bhagavan had placed the chariot in front of maybe Karna or Duryodhana, the situation could have been different. For all we may know, Arjuna's blood would have got even more boiling and the battle would have started. But Bhagavan wanted Arjuna to be fully convinced and wanted to teach him this Gita Upadesha. And therefore, he had purposely placed it in front of Bhishma and Drona. Why Bhishma and Drona? Because Arjuna had deep, intense attachment towards his guru and his grandfather. He was deeply attached. In our families also, each one of us are deeply attached to at least one or two. We would be deeply attached and that person would be deeply attached to us. So here, Bhagavan knows that and therefore he placed the chariot in front of Bhishma and Drona. And what happens from this Sloka 26? Emotions of Arjuna are going to come out. Remember when we discussed about samsara earlier, some classes before, I talked about Vyasa using the Ragah, Shoka method of teaching samsara. Ragah, Shoka, Moha. That is how samsara would be taught. So we would be now seeing raga, then shoka, and then moha. So if you look at it, the first 20 slokas in this chapter, it's mainly about the battlefield description. There's nothing much there, up to 20 slokas. Then 21 to 25, it is about Arjuna giving the order to Bhagavan and Bhagavan fulfilling the order. So up to 25. So the setting the scene has happened. Now it is about emotions coming into play, and 26 onwards we will see raga, attachment of Arjuna coming to the fore. So 26 to 28 is raga, and then from 29 to 31 it is about shoka, Arjuna's sadness, and then from 31 to 46 it is all about delusion, moha. Shoka is an emotion that happens at the mind level. Moha is a dosha or a fault that happens at the intellectual level. So we will be seeing that. Now before we get into this sloka, let's do some vichara on Ragah. Ragah or attachment. In Tamil we say pasam, patru, kamam, priyam, sneham, whatever. So Ragah, it comes out of a feeling. What is attachment? Attachment is a feeling that comes out of this concept, they belong to me and I belong to them. So this thing belongs to me, so I am attached, or I belong to them and therefore I am attached. So this is how you can explain Ragah. And this emotion has struck Arjuna now. This attachment is in every one of our minds. We all have attachments. And typically for an attachment, there needs to be an object of attachment. And what is that object of attachment? Mostly it will be other people. We are all attached to some relations, some people, and therefore, we are also attached to some objects. And typically, what are these objects of attachment? The objects of attachment typically are those that bring us comfort or happiness or some kind of a sukham in the mind. If the object is going to give us dukkham, we will not be attached to them. We will instead have aversion. But attachment happens with the objects that bring us happiness or sukham or some bit of comfort. And what happens when the attachment goes deep? If the attachment goes deep, the mind will come to a level where we would say, I cannot be without this person or without her, without him. I cannot think of a life without this person or without this object. So that is how deep attachment can go. What is the root cause of this attachment? We will do a vichara afterwards on that. We will not go into now. But let's see now how the attachment keeps growing. What makes the attachment grow? Typically, attachment grows out of sangha. Sangha means some kind of a proximity, familiarity. So what happens when initially we meet a person? We have this, okay, hello, hi, that kind of thing. We don't feel any attachment to that person. Then what happens as we continue to meet frequently with that person, we talk to that person, we understand that person, we get attached. Either we get attached or we get hatred. So raga, and the other side of the coin is dvesha. So that's why we say in one of the English terms is there, right? Familiarity breeds contempt. So either it is attachment or aversion or hatred basically. And let's focus on raga, which is attachment. So raga, it happens because of sangha. Sangha means association, some bit of connect. That is how it grows. The second reason why is why attachment grows is sankalpa. What happens is, after meeting that person, we come back and then we think, we bring it back to the mind about that person or about that object. We keep bringing it back in our mind, and that way our attachment grows. The same thing with the hatred also. That person would have just said one word to us, but what happens? We will come back, we will brood over it. Initially we should have just ignored that person and moved on, but after coming back home we will keep brooding over it until it turns into hatred. And the hatred keeps growing. That person would have done only once, but the hatred would have grown multifold times because of the sankalpa, that brooding that we do. And that's the same with attachment also. Continuous contemplation, and that continuous contemplation will lead us to a state where we think, or where we are convinced that I cannot be without that person, or I cannot be without this object. And remember, attachment is not on everything. So not everybody is going to get attached to everything, and not everybody is going to attach to the same object also. There are some things that are in the mind that we keep bringing it back, on which we get attached. So here Arjuna had been associated with Bhishma and Drona for a long time. So there has been a sangha, connect, and hence he had got attached to them. Remember, Arjuna had not got attached to them right now in this battlefield. Attachment doesn't happen just overnight. Arjuna had this attachment always, but the attachment was not evident. The same way we think we may not be attached to anybody, or we think we may not be attached to this person. But what happens is, that attachment is not coming to the fore. As long as you are with that person, you will not feel that attachment. The moment we are away from that person, that's when we start to feel whether we are attached or not. That's when we can actually make a judgment whether we are attached to that person or not. So here in this, and it happens, the attachment takes some time to build. So here Arjuna had this attachment with Bhishma and Drona for a long time, but only now it is getting evident. Now this attachment, what is the result of attachment? We will see. So first of all, Raga is what? Attachment. Attachment, what do we say? Attachment is a feeling that I cannot be without this person or without this object. And then what is the reason for attachment to grow? Two reasons. One is Sangha, the other one is Sankalpa. Now we will see what is the result of this attachment. What is the result of this Raga? Right now when we are in this life, and the person is around us, there seems to be nothing wrong with the attachment. So what if I am associated? So what if I am close with this person? So what if I am attached to this person? It might feel that there is nothing wrong there. I like this person, I like that object, there is nothing adharmic about it. What is wrong with that? Nothing wrong. Only problem is, we have to understand where does this Raga lead to. What happens first? Suppose we like a person or an object. First and foremost, after we get a little bit of attachment, we want to acquire it. Suppose I see a flower on the road, I like that flower, that's fine. But after that, I want to acquire it. Same thing with a house, car, or anything. So we want to take an effort to attain that object, or we want to have that person in our life. And what happens when we want to have that person in life or have to attain that object? We will encounter some hindrances, we will encounter some obstruction. we will have somebody who is actually coming in the way. There will always be someone. The question is, how do we approach that hindrance? So there is a somebody or something that comes in between. Then what happens? Our mind will now first check on the strength of the person who comes as a hindrance. This all happens in between, within our mind. We wouldn't have even realized that these things happen in our mind. But what will happen is, our mind will try to judge what is the strength of the person who is coming there as a hindrance. If that person is strong, if that person is stronger than us, then we will get fear. Because we think we will not be able to overcome that person. If that person is weak, or that hindrance is a weak thing, we will get anger. So either it is fear or anger, bhaya or krodha. So attachment can lead to either fear or anger. So there is another outcome of raga also. So one is basically, when I want to acquire it, there is something as a hindrance. That hindrance, if it is strong, stronger than me, then I have fear. If it is weaker than me, I have anger. But then there is also another outcome of raga. The fear or the outcome that we have, the fear or the anger that we have, is on the object of the object or the person who is obstructing us. But what happens, we have to understand is, the object of attachment also, it is not going to be sashvatam. It is not going to be permanent. Anybody in our life is not going to be permanent. We are not going to have the same time of death. 99% of the cases, we may not have the same time of death. So, or this person may be only, if I am attached too much to my children, then they will have to leave one day. If I am attached to my parents, they will have to leave one day. So it's not going to be sashvatam. So when our mind comes to know that the object of attachment is going to perish, is going to leave us, then what happens is, the emotion that comes to our mind is shoka, sorrow. So if someone else is responsible for the object's destruction, somebody else is going to come in way of my object of attachment, then it is either fear or anger. But if we ourselves are responsible for it, or if we feel that the destruction is going to happen, or the separation is going to happen on its own, then we get sorrow. Suppose I have an expensive, flower vase of crystal or whatever at home. I'm so attached to it. I had actually gone to a specific shop and I had made to order and made sure that this is one of the, a piece which I would like to showcase in my living room, and that had been, the centerpiece of my living. Everybody coming and asking, I'm so attached to it. Suppose what happens? Somebody destroys it, somebody takes it, and if the person is actually weaker than me, then I get anger. But if I myself is responsible for dropping that vase, I don't get angry on myself, I get sorrow. So the feeling changes, but the object of attachment can lead to either fear or anger or sorrow. So invariably attachment leads to sorrow, and that is what is going to happen to Arjuna. So Arjuna, what happens is, initially he will show attachment, and then we will see that his state of mind changing to shoka, because the people that he is attached to, namely Bhishma and Drona, the problem for him is, if they are going to be killed by someone else, Arjuna is going to be angry because he will go in fright with them. And Arjuna is a stronger guy than many of the others who may want to fight against Arjuna. So Arjuna should get angry, and he would have got a fight into them. He would have got into a fight with them. But here he understands the situation is such that he himself is going to be responsible for their death. Because he knows that if he is going to fight the war, and if he has to win it, he will have to kill them. And therefore, he is going into Shoka. And now only in this battlefield, when he is able to see the possibility of losing the object of attachment, only when he is able to sort of realize that Bhishma and Drona will perish, now that hidden attachment, that intense attachment that he had for them or he has for them, it surfaces now. It's not that Arjuna was free from the disease of attachment. He always had this disease. We all have. But it was not evident. It's just like an incubation period. And then what happens in the battlefield? It surfaced for Arjuna. And that is why we find it extremely difficult to handle attachment. Because more often than not, we do not know that we have this problem of attachment. We don't even realize that we have this problem of attachment. We are blissfully ignorant, and therefore we do not take any action against that problem. Because first of all, we are not even aware of that problem. And if it is hidden for so long and suddenly when it surfaces, it is so powerful that we cannot take any action. In some cases, in families, there could be a death of a loved one. Initially, they wouldn't have, they probably didn't even realize that they were so attached. But the moment that event happens, they are in a state of shock. Some people are in a state of shock. They are unable to accept it. They are unable to act on it. They are unable to lead a normal life of. That's because of the intensity of the attachment is not evident until that event happens. And that's the problem with Raga. That's the problem with attachment. Now, we'll come to the Sloka. When you come to the Sloka, Sanjaya should have said, Arjuna saw the enemies. That's how rightfully he should have said. Because already Arjuna had said, Dhardarashran Durbuddhehe, I want to see who are the people whom I have to fight. All those things. But remember, I also told Sanjaya had this unique gift of not only seeing what is happening in the battlefield, he has been given the gift of seeing in what is happening in their mind also. So basically Sanjaya now explains the mind of Arjuna here, and Sanjaya, instead of saying Arjuna saw the enemies there, Sanjaya says Arjuna saw relatives. He did not see who had come to fight this adharmic war. He basically saw the relatives. And that happened after seeing Bhishma and Drona. Because until that time, he had seen them as enemies. But the feeling of they are all my relatives happens after he saw Bhishma and Drona. So the relatives are listed here. Who are they? Tatra Pashyastitan Partha. Tatra means on the side of Kauravas, the opposite side. Partha Pashyat. Partha Apashyat. Partha Apashyat means Arjuna saw. Apashyat is past tense. Arjuna saw. Apashyat. Whom did he saw? Sthitan. Sthitan means assembled. He saw them assembled. Who is he seeing? Pitrun, Pitamahan, Acharyan, Matulan, Bhratrun, Putran, Pautran, Sakin. And then the list goes further. We will be able to understand more of the words. Pitrun. Pitrun means basically fathers. Arjuna saw his own fathers standing. Pita means father. Pitrun means fathers. How can we say fathers? There can be only one father, because what happens is in Dharma Shastra, it says every individual has 5 fathers. Janita cha upaneta cha yashya vidyam prayachati annadata bhayatrata panjayite pitaras mritaha. It says there are 5 fathers or 5 people who are as good as fathers for us. First one is Janita. Janita means the biological father who has given birth to that person, popularly known as the father. Janita cha upaneta. Upaneta means one who gives the sacred thread, upanayanam, one who does the initiation ceremony. That person is considered another father. Generally in our culture, the father himself does the upanayanam. But in some cases, if the father is not able to perform, then whoever does that ritual, that person is also considered as good as a father. That is, he must be respected as though he is a father. So upaneta. The next one is yasya yascha vidyam prayachati. Yascha vidyam prayachati. Who gives the vidya? Guru. So the guru is also considered a father. And that is why even during this Upanayanam ceremony, what happens is, when the Gayatri Upadesha is done, they cover the person with the silk cloth. Why silk cloth and why is covered? Because this indicates as Garbhavasha. It indicates a pregnancy. It is symbolic representation of the second Garbhavasa. That's why we also say Dvija. Dvija means when the Upanayanam happens, he becomes second born. And for him to be second born, this Garbhavasa is indicated by that silk cloth that is covered. So first Garbhavasa is the actual one when the person is in the womb of the mother. And then the second Garbhavasa is when the person is, we can say, in the Gurukula. So Gurukula Vasa is also considered Garbhavasa. That during the Upanayanam ceremony, and then afterwards he goes to Gurukula, that is also considered to be a Garbhavasa only. Because in our culture we say a person is born like an animal. When he is born only as an animal. There is no culture. That's why we say until the age of Upanayanam, we say it doesn't matter whether he actually, I don't know how to say in English, but in Tamil we say Echal Pandrathu. We don't have any restrictions. There is no control. That person can eat from any plate. That child is wild, it is untamed, uncontrolled. So it can eat and perform its daily activities any time of the day. They can eat at the night. If the child is hungry, they will eat at night. But then what happens after you grow up, they say, at night time, after about 11:30, 12, one should not eat until 3:30, 4 o'clock, they say. Because these are times when asuras eat. So we are generally not allowed to eat during those times. So when a person is born, we are all born as prakrita purushaha, animalistic instincts. We are only physically human beings, but mentally we are not cultured. When we get cultured? Only when we get into a Gurukula. we learn the Vedas, we learn what is Dharma, we learn what is Adharma, and then we start living a life based on Dharma and Adharma. That is when we become from animal man to man. So instead of living our life according to our likes and dislikes, if we are living our life according to our likes and dislikes, it is called as animal man. But once we base our life on Dharma and Adharma, we become man. And then how to become God man? Once we get this jnana, once we get this knowledge, spiritual knowledge of who am I, then I become God man. So here we coming back to this one. So where did we start? We started that Guru is the third father. So the child comes out of Gurukula, and when the child comes out of Gurukula, he is a new human being. So from Prakrita Purushaha, he becomes a Samskrita Purushaha. He is no more a wild animalistic being, but he is a cultured human being. So Prakrita Purusha to Samskrita Purusha. That's why I said we use this Dvija, twice born. First born is from the mother's womb, the second born is from Gurukula. And for this Gurukula, the Guru is the father, the mother is supposed to be Gayatri. Gayatri is supposed to be the mother, Acharya is the father. So that is the third Janita, Upaneta, Yascha Vidyam Prayachati. Then the fourth father is Annadata. When we are hungry, we do not have anybody to feed. At that point of time, if a person protects us by feeding, giving us food, in a state where without food we would have died, the one who gives that, the one who keeps us going by feeding us, that person is also like a father. And therefore Annadata is the fourth father. And the final father is Bhayatrata, the one who rescues us from adversity, the one who gives us another life, second life, by protecting us from any danger. If any danger comes in our life and somebody is protecting us, that person is also called a father. So keeping that Shastric view, Vyasacharya basically uses the expression Pitrun. Those people who are all respectable people like teachers, his gurus are there, Kripacharya is there, Dronacharya is there. So who are all as good as his parents. And the next one is Pitrun, then Pitamahan, grandfathers. Many fathers, many grandfathers. Then Acharyan. Acharyan means teachers in different fields. So it's not just one Acharya. In the field of archery, Drona is there, Dronacharya. Drona is standing in front. Then other Acharyas are there. As I said, Kripa is another Acharya. Then Matulan. Matulan means uncles. Then Bhratrun. Bhratrun means brothers. Kauravas are his cousin brothers. So brothers. So now instead of Dhartarashtrasya Durbuddhehe, Arjuna is now seeing brothers. And then who else he sees? Bhratran, Putran. Putran means children. His own children. His cousin brother's children are also his children. Karna's children is also his children. Duryodhana's children is also his children. All these people are good as his own children. And therefore Pautran. And then Sakin, friends. So he sees them all. Then in this Sloka 27 he says Swasuran. Swasuran Suhrudaschaiva. Swashuran means fathers-in-law. Arjuna had many fathers-in-law. And the fathers-in-law of his own brothers are also his fathers-in-law. All these people who are as good as fathers-in-law. Eva Suhrudaschaiva. He saw well-wishers. Suhrudaha means well-wishers. Instead of seeing enemies, he is seeing well-wishers. And where are they? Senayor Ubayor Api. Standing on both sides of the army. He is saying on both sides of the army. And then what happens? Tan samikshasya kaunteyah sarvan bandhun avastitan. Bandhu. Bandhu means person to whom I have a bond of attachment. Is a bandhu. It is derived from the root band, to be bound. Attachment. Remember, in Tamil, attachment is called pasam or pasha kairu, we say. Attachment is compared to a rope because it binds us. It binds us with other people. And the more we are bound with other objects, other relations, other situations, the more we lose our freedom. Because our happiness is no more determined by us anymore. It is determined by the object of attachment. Our happiness will be determined by the people with whom we have this problem of attachment. And therefore they are called as bandhun, bandhavaha, bandhava. So seeing Arjuna saw all these bandhus, kith and kin, so very closely. And how did he see them? Samikshya. Ikshanam means seeing. Samikshaya means closely seeing, intensely seeing. When he saw those faces very closely, what happened? A total transformation happened. What is the transformation? The transformation is 28th line, 28th sloka, first line. Kripaya paraya vishtaha. Kripaya paraya vishtaha. Arjuna was overpowered by attachment. Kripa here does not mean compassion. Kripa means, normally we say kripa means compassion. In this context, it is attachment. Kripa, compassion is a virtue of a jnani. And compassion does not bind a person. When I am compassionate towards others, it means I have love for the other person, but not attachment. Whereas attachment is a sign of weakness. Attachment is a weakness of a jnani. Compassion is the strength or a virtue of a... attachment is the weakness of an ajnani. Attachment is the weakness of an ajnani, whereas compassion is the strength or the virtue of a jnani. Attachment causes problem. Compassion is a virtue. Compassion belongs to a jnani. Attachment belongs to an ajnani. Arjuna here happens to be an ajnani. And therefore kripa should be translated as Ragah. Therefore Ragena Avishta. He was overpowered by this emotion. Remember, he is overpowered by the emotion, which means he is not the master of the emotion. The emotion became his master. It is not that he picked up this raga attachment and said, okay, I am going to be attached now. The attachment just overpowered him. For us, a jnani is the master of emotions. Jnani can pick his emotion. If he wants to show anger, he can show anger. Whereas for an ajnani, is a slave of emotions. For an ajnani, anger overpowers him. For a jnani, emotion is an action. It is an action. He can willfully, he can consciously, he can entertain an emotion. Whereas for an ajnani, the emotion is basically a reaction. It just strikes him. So remember, here actually it has to be dramatized, but Vyasacharya cannot dramatize this conversation because his medium is only words, and therefore he can only write one line. He says, Kripaya Paraya Avishta. And we have to do this imagination now. Now we have to stop at this juncture and we have to identify with Arjuna. We have to imagine Arjuna seeing Bhishma and Drona's face. What happens immediately? If it's like a movie, you can show, it rushes back to the previous, his childhood. It goes back to his entire childhood, how he has played with them, how he has actually sat in their lap, how they had taught him, how they had actually cajoled him, made him to go to sleep, feel him good. They could have told him stories, they would have caressed him, they might have kissed him. That intimacy in that relationship, all those things could have come on Arjuna's mind. And now they are meeting here. Now they are not meeting here to exchange kisses. They are here to exchange arrows. And Arjuna must have visualized the consequences also. He could have visualized that Pandavas are going to be victorious. And if they have to be victorious, the Kauravas have to be killed. The army, everybody in their army should have been killed. Which means there will be a future in which Bhishma is dead, Drona is dead, and he goes home. And he could imagine the home being empty, with life without any meaning, without his grandfather, without his guru, and his mind breaks down. Remember, he hasn't lost them yet. It is only lost in his imagination. But this very imagination is enough. This imaginary loss is enough. It's making a big change in Arjuna's mind. It's all in words, so there cannot be any music, there cannot be any visual, we cannot have any close-ups, zoom lenses, anything of that, but we just have to imagine. Now what has happened? Arjuna has now turned into a samsari. Samsari. What is samsara? We already saw. Ragah, Sloka, Moha. Attachment, sorrow, delusion, or conflict in mind. So, Kripaya Paraya Avishtaha. Attachment has come. Avishta, overpowered. Kripaya Avishta. Arjuna is overpowered by the fundamental problem of samsara, known as Ragah. That is what Vyasacharya wants to confirm or convey. And once a person is overpowered by Ragah, what happens? The immediate consequence will be Vishidan idam abravit. Vishidam. Vishidan means what? Grief, sorrow. So Raga has come, now sorrow has come. Wherever there is attachment, there will be sorrow. Attachment and sorrow are the same coin, but two sides of the same coin. The intensity of sorrow is directly proportional to the intensity of the attachment. So, Paraya Kripaya, attachment was extremely intense, and therefore the sorrow was also intense. Vishidan, grieving. Vishidan. So, angry Arjuna. Now we see a transformation. Angry Arjuna, who wanted to see who are the people fighting there, has now suddenly become a sorrowful Arjuna. A rational Arjuna, who saw Dhardarashtra Durbuddhaye, has now become emotional Arjuna, who is seeing relatives on the other side. A soldier Arjuna who wanted to fight now has become a samsari Arjuna, is overpowered by Raga, Shoka. What happens next? He is going to say, Saha abravit idam. He said the following words. Vishidan idam abravit. He said, grievingly he said the following words. What words he said? We will see that in the next class. Any questions, comments? Otherwise, we will see it in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.